Hello and welcome to Low Carb Conversations. I'm your host, Leah Williamson, and we're with our host, Holly Barrett. Welcome, Holly.
Hello.
And we've got an exciting guest today. Welcome, Crystal Sikes.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Crystal we might know her as the Lady Savage. She has a website and popular Instagram account. Crystal is a coach, a powerlifter, competitive bodybuilder. She's married to the Keto Savage, which is Robert Sikes, that's if you're watching the video replay, that's why she's called Robert today. And we've had Robert on the podcast before. Crystal's the co-owner of Keto Brick and Live Savage Apparel, and she's soon to be a mama, which is all very exciting. And there's just so many things. I probably left out about 20 different things. You are one amazing woman, and we're so excited to be talking to you today. So welcome to the podcast, Crystal.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, I've mentioned a few things here, but we would love to hear a little bit more about your story and what, I guess, framed you to do all the things that you're doing today, and tell us a little bit about all those things as well.
Oh my goodness. That's quite a big story to go into. No, really, I feel like a lot of it stems from just being with Robert in the first place. So I think a lot of you guys heard, the businesses that we own and all of that. Well, Robert has always been very, entrepreneurial minded and very go get 'em type of personality. And I've always been the kind of person that's like, I'm just going to support you. I'm going to just follow you. I'm going to let you do your thing. And I'm just going to be here to help be the person to push us through. And so that's really what we've done the whole time. Even from the very beginning, just me starting my whole keto journey, was Robert saying hey, I really think you should try this diet. I'm like, oh, I think you're crazy. And then he just kind of kept saying I really think this would help change your life. And so slowly but surely, I finally listened to him and changed my ways. So yeah, we have built our whole life around this diet, this lifestyle of, lifting hard, lifting heavy, just being healthy and promoting health to all the people around us. And now soon to be another little savage too.
Oh, congratulations. It's so exciting.
Thanks.
So, in going back into your health history, and I think that you've overcome a lot of different challenges in your life. Would you mind sharing with our listeners some of maybe the highlights, or maybe they're lowlights, but some of the some of the things that kind of shape the work that you do now with your clients?
Yeah. So the reason I started keto was because I was having so much gastrointestinal issues. I was diagnosed with GERD and IBS and gastroparesis, slow transit colon, all these wonderful, amazing things that really, really probably stemmed a lot from just different things in my life, like having been a C-section baby, having been on a ton of antibiotics as a child, and then also just the lifestyle I was living of just eating terrible food, smoking, drinking, all the things. So that's really what got me started with keto and actually paying attention to my health and wellness. And so a lot of the people that I work with do have gastric issues and are kind of just looking for a way to ease their pain or discomfort. Maybe they have a diagnosis and maybe they don't. I don't diagnose people, but I do try to help them use keto as a tool to better their health and their pain tolerance, or their pain in general, so they don't have to have tolerance. And then also I've done competition preps with bodybuilding. I've suffered from some eating disorders during that period of time, binge eating, and then having to kind of get over a little bit of body dysmorphia after seeing my body just so lean, show ready, to gaining 30 pounds in 3 months and being the heaviest I'd ever been, and just really having to battle with all the changes that come with that, mentally, physically, emotionally, all of that. So I do have, clients that I also work with doing that as well. And now my goal is to help everyone do it in the best, most healthy way possible for their body, and just trying to help people navigate, what's going to work best for them. And also when to take a step back and realize that maybe, working through this eating disorder, maybe working through this health issue is more important than, your weight loss or that physical goal that you have.
That's such a great philosophy. And if people are looking to maybe find out more about that, can they go to your website and find more information?
Yeah. So everything about, coaching and what I kind of stand for is all on ladysavage.com. And you're welcome to check that out at any time.
Great. We'll link that up into the show notes for everybody. And tell us about Keto Brick. I'm sure most of the people in the keto world have definitely heard about it, but maybe there's some listeners listening in that are thinking, what is a keto brick?
Yeah. So a Keto Brick is 1,000-calorie meal replacement bar. We originally had made a bunch of different versions for Robert and his competition prep for his bodybuilding. And the reason we really made it was so that he could have something that was dense in nutrients, but also dense in calories while not expanding his stomach and getting him like super bloated for the stage. So we wanted him to be fueled. We wanted him to have plenty of fat, plenty of energy, a little bit of protein, and really fill out his muscles and things like that on show day. And as we started eating these things, we just loved them. We used them other than just on show day, and started showing them on the YouTube and things like that. And people are like, man, what is the recipe for that? I need to get my hands on one of those. So we just decided, okay, let's make a bunch, send them to our friends, see if they like them as much as we do. So we did. We sent them out to like Danny Vega, a few other people, and they're like, you have got to do something with this. So Robert and I just started in our little townhouse, like trying to figure out how we can get like approved by the health department, how we can get all of this stuff to work. And it's been, I think we're going on 3, almost 4 years now of being in business and producing these bricks. And we have amazing employees that help us make them. And it's just really awesome. The 1,000 calories sounds like a lot, especially for a lot of females. But you can either eat like the whole thing at one time. You can cut it up into like bite-sized pieces. I love to pour them on my chaffles. I melt them down and pour them on my like keto chaffles, and it's amazing.
Yum.
So there's a lot of different things that you can do with it rather than just like chowing down on 1,000 calories.
Yeah, definitely. And it sounds like, in the body, is it body sculpting, bodybuilding kind of world, that there isn't a lot of like people focus on nutrition, but it's not a lot of good nutrition as we would kind of class it in terms of the things that they're trying to eat or not eat in order to meet their body requirements. So have you found that they've been receptive of this, or is it more the keto world that are taking this on?
Yeah, it would definitely be more in the keto space. A lot of keto bodybuilders have used it. Robert does competition prep coaching, so a lot of his clients will utilize that as well. But for the average bodybuilder, they typically what they do is actually keep their fat and their carbs pretty low at the end of a competition and keep their protein super, super high. So they're not getting a ton of their energy sources, just enough to like keep them slowly going. So they haven't been super receptive to it, but I feel like a lot of people are starting to realize how beneficial keto can be for bodybuilding, specifically because you do get an energy source. You don't feel like a zombie towards the end. You get plenty of fat. You're not super bloated and full like some of the carbs can make you. So yeah, it's been interesting to see. We originally made them for athletes in mind, but now we have people of all different kinds, especially people who like stand on their feet for a lot, like hairdressers, moms. We've got a lot of breastfeeding moms because they're just sitting. They need something to eat and high fat, and it has electrolytes in it. So, salt, things like that you would need for that. So it's been interesting to see the demographic of people kind of changing and molding into maybe something that we didn't expect to go for, but it's been really awesome to see the amount of different types of people that have been attracted to it.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And you ship around the world as well? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So inside the US, we do free shipping. Outside the US, we do have to charge for extra shipping.
Yeah. It always is to Australia.
Yes, I know. We are trying to get a wholesales going. We just hired Kevin. So Kevin is our new manager and wholesale person. So we're really trying to dig into that and get the prices a little bit cheaper for those outside the US.
Sounds great. Well, we'll link that up into the show notes as well, so people who are interested can go and have a look. And then I'll just mention briefly before I hand over to Holly, who's got the first article, but you also have your other company is an apparel company as well. So do you want to talk a little bit about that too?
Yeah, so we started Live Savage Apparel a couple of years ago, and it's been a little bit slow going, especially with COVID and the delays in all of the things showing up, especially with clothing. Not a lot of people when they're out of work and things like that would like to go towards clothing. So we did kind of delay it this last year or so, but we just like this last week bought our own screen printer. So now we're able to actually screen our own prints, our own wording, our own logos. Like we are so excited about it. The guys have been working on it every single day. So we'll have a lot of new designs, lots and lots of t-shirts and things like that coming out in the near future. We've been really, really wanting to do more of it in-house. So now is our opportunity and we're super excited about it.
Oh, that sounds really great. And we'll definitely link that up too. So look forward to seeing all the different clothing that comes out of that as well. Awesome. So, well, Holly has the first article today. We're going to talk a little bit about, we're going to talk about menstruation and how this impacts exercise. And then later on, I've got an article around pregnancy and body dysmorphia. And so I'll hand over to Holly.
Yeah, we're going to cover a lot today, so I will try to move quickly. But this first article, I think it's really interesting, especially for women who notice that they feel different around their period when it comes to working out. But the title of it is "Your Period Seriously Affects the Way You Exercise, and Here's How to Use It to Your Advantage." A little bit about the article for the people not under attack. Sorry, people who can't see me, my dog's in my face. The article starts off, it's kind of funny actually, pointing out how women on their period would rather just lay around and watch reruns of their favorite show, maybe eat some junk food, that whole cliche of soap operas and bonbons. And that is true for a lot of women, but then the article kind of goes on to say that exercising during your period can actually be helpful. It could ease some symptoms that women may be experiencing that are uncomfortable during their period. But the real kicker is that it could actually help you get like a PB, like personal best in your exercise and fitness. It's saying, according to some new science that has come out, women are stronger, more motivated, and more of a bad A when they're menstruating. So that's not really what we're used to hearing. But Crystal, since this is kind of like your realm, you've been in the fitness world for a while, and obviously you're female and have experienced this. What can you tell us that has been your experience around working out and your hormone cycles?
I agree with everything in that article. I used to be one of those girls that used to think like it was okay to just chow down on everything and take it easy on my period. But I actually just recently did a video on this topic saying exactly that. And it's simply because all of your hormones are going up and down and all over the place during your cycle. That's why I call it a cycle, because your period or your hormones are going up and down. So yes, I actually attest to getting PRs or, personal records, personal bests on the week of my period. Maybe not day 1 or 2, but definitely towards, day 3, 4, 5 of my period. Definitely feel strong, and you almost feel super cool because you're like, I'm doing this all while being on my period. So another thing is the week before you start your period, a lot of people will notice that they get a little bit more hungry. And if you're not trying to like do a cut or anything like that, I would actually go ahead and give into that a little bit, maybe upping your protein and your fat if you're keto. And actually utilizing that, because we get a little more hungry simply because we do actually burn a few more calories. Not crazy, don't need to eat like 500 more calories, but you can slightly increase maybe your meat intake or just a little bit of fat and protein. And that might actually help you with the week of your period.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because the article does mention that. And I did know that we do burn more calories at some point in our cycle, but I didn't ever put the two together where it was your body is burning more calories as you go into your period, and that's why you're having those extra hunger cravings. It doesn't necessarily mean that that is your free pass to just eat whatever you want because you feel like it. But I think it helps kind of keep things into perspective when you realize, oh, I'm not just crazy. My body is actually burning a little bit more.
Yeah, totally. Not the junk food, but go eat a little bit more of the good stuff, nutrient dense things.
Right. But I also think, like, I know I talk to clients and I'm going through some fasting protocols now myself, and it's like during that time that is when like I make sure not to fast. And so people who are practicing like intermittent fasting, that's a hard time to do it, because if you're already kind of restricting and then you're having these extra cravings, like for me, for someone who has a history of binge eating, disordered eatings, like that's just a recipe for disaster. So I give myself that grace and that wiggle room, understanding that I'm working with my body during that time instead of trying to fight against it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've made those mistakes, and in just not knowing what was going on with my body, I'm like, I have headaches, I don't feel good. Why? I guess I'm just not meant to fast, but really just paying attention to your cycle can do a ton.
Exactly. And it's so empowering once you know. Another thing that this article said that was interesting, it says that it's important to note that your period is an inflammatory process, which means that your body is pretty stressed out during that time. So you're going to be recovering a little bit more slowly if you are training, and it's kind of just your body's signal and its way of telling you to back off the heavy lifting or just the heavy stuff, even if it's not lifting, but maybe not such intense workouts. And I think that's also really empowering information, because so often we hear like, yes, you're not going to feel like working out every day, but you just need to push through it. You need to, don't be a baby, just do it. And so when you work with clients who are working out and they have those days where, they're just not motivated, they're just not feeling it. How do you work through those? Like, what is your advice to your clients during those times?
I always suggest going in and doing your warm up stuff, which should not be heavy. It should just be like walking on the treadmill, doing some stretches, things like that for at least 10 or 15 minutes. If you feel like junk and you don't feel like your body can, go through the motions of that workout, then it's probably because your body doesn't want to do it. It's probably because you need a little bit of time to recover. But if after 10 or 15 minutes, you feel like, oh, okay, I feel a little bit more limber, I feel pretty good, then go ahead and do your workout. Maybe it's not going to be as heavy. Maybe it's not going to be as hard or as intense, but getting in some movement can be really, really helpful. So that's why I suggest just going in, doing some stretching. You're still moving your body. And if at that point you're like, this is not going to be a good thing for me, just don't, and don't feel guilty about it. But if you feel a little bit better and a little bit more movement might be helpful, then go ahead and proceed.
That is excellent advice. I like that, because you know what? There are going to be those days where mentally you're just not there. And I remember, like, I grew up playing soccer, and there'd be days where I just don't want to go to practice. I don't feel like playing the game. But once you start going and start moving your body, then you get into it. But yeah, you're right. But there are those days where you're just dragging and your feet feel like bricks and your body feels like a bag of cement and it's just not moving. And so those are good cues to maybe just take a little rest day.
Yeah.
What does it say? Okay, so this other part says that your peak performance may be during your follicular phase or late follicular phase, and that your energy levels and motivation might take a little bit of a dip around your period. But like you said, it's just a little bit and then it could come right out. But really, it's just understanding that our female physiology how our menstrual cycle is affecting our performance. That's really just like the first step to accepting the changes and learning about them. So I like that the article kind of summed it up that way. Leah, do you have any thoughts on here? Like, I know you're an instructor as well. Like, is this something you work around or discuss with female clients?
Well, I'm not teaching anything like weightlifting or anything like that. It's more yoga and Pilates, but and certainly all of those kind of types of exercise, doing that kind of movement is, you know, usually attainable for everybody during that phase. I remember back in the, I guess, like the old days, showing my age here, when if you had your period while you were doing yoga, you weren't allowed to do things like put the legs up the wall, or you had to, you know, everyone was down in child's pose and you had to raise your hand and let the instructor know that you were like menstruating. It was all very strange. And so much now in more recent times, I've asked my like yoga mentor, and I was like, people used to ask that a lot, like, what's happened now? And she was kind of like, well, there's no basis for it. Like, you know, there was no, it was more like, it wasn't like it was a ancient Indian kind of practice brought through. It was more like a modern twist put on by Western society to say these things, because there was the myths around that women can't do anything during menstruation. And so there was kind of brought forward through into these practices. And so now they kind of scrapped all of that. And it's also can be quite invasive for some people to kind of like, you know, stand in the middle of the class and say, I can't put my legs up the wall today because of, you know, because of this. So, yeah, I think it's, you know, more the myths that are coming around. But I did have a question for Crystal around, but this is more the dietary types of eating, that, you know, in the keto and low carb world, there's kind of there's a few different camps. And one of them is about carb cycling for women around their cycles. Like, could you talk to us a bit about your thoughts around the carb cycling? And when I'm talking carb cycling, I'm not talking about going and eating, you know, some bread rolls and processed, you know, hamburgers and things like that, but more like, you know, is it helpful to maybe add some sweet potato in or something like that?
So for myself, and what I've done with all of my clients, is I do not do carb cycling. Not that I'm 100% against it specifically for females. Everyone's going to be so individualized, and I like to make sure that that is very clear. For myself, I think that it would be a little bit more intriguing to go off the rails. And I've noticed that with a lot of my clients as well, even if we're just sweet potato. That's it. That's all you're allowed. It almost sends them a signal that's like, I want more. I want something sweet. I want something. So I've really avoided it a lot. It also can cause me a little bit of GI upset. I did try the very first year I was keto. I was kind of on and off again. But there was a period of time where I tried carb cycling, and it was just it wasn't beneficial for me. I couldn't find the benefit of it for me as an individual. And so I just never really dove into that a lot. But I know a lot of people do. And if people would, you know, if that's something that someone's interested in trying, I usually just say, you know, I'm not the pro at this, but this person is. Let's go over there and we'll talk to them about it. So
yeah, I guess it's bio-individual approach, isn't it? So whatever the client needs. And what about seed cycling? Have you heard stories about that as well?
Yeah, I've heard stories of seed cycling working really well. Again, not a thing that I've really tried myself, but I have heard a lot of stories of it working really well for people, and then again, not working at all for other people. So I think, again, it's very individualized, and I don't think there's a harm in trying those things and just seeing if it works for you, because our cycles are super, super important. And if your cycle isn't regular, trying to figure out what's going to work for you so that it is a successful cycle, I think is really important.
Definitely. Holly, did you have any other questions there?
No, I was just going to say, I love what you said about the carb cycling and being so bio-individual, because it really is. And I know there's a lot of clients that I work with who they don't want to give up the carbs. You know, that's really hard. And so the appeal of carb cycling, I get it, because it's like you still get to have something. But on the other hand, with certain clients, I also still see it as that crutch. And it is like that one little thing that gets that snowball going to where it turns into that big sugar monster again.
Mhm.
And so some people really are just, it's like a hard no there when it
Mhm.
comes. I mean, at least, I mean, I don't know if it's a forever thing, but there is definitely a time where it just does not work for some people. The article does talk about some things for diet and how our diet can affect our cycle. And I thought it brought up some good points. It says when it comes to women, we should eat at different things during our cycles, but things like fish, sardines, anchovies, those are all great for the omega-3 foods, as well as avocados and olive oils, because those are going to help us have more energy and also give us the vitamins we need. It says to focus on magnesium, zinc, and B6, because those are all going to just kind of help alleviate any type of cravings or ill feelings and stuff. So nowhere in here does it say anything about bonbons. And I think that's it. Leah, do you have anything else to add on this one?
No, I thought it was a really great
Okay.
article though. It's
It
very,
was. I saved a copy of it because it does go in a lot deeper into the phases of your cycle, and it does go into more sciencey stuff there. So if anyone listening really wants to dive into that, I will link up the video that Crystal, that you said you just made, and also you can check the show notes for this article too, because it was a really well-written article.
and I do have a question for Crystal that's going to lead into the next one. But while we're talking about different dietary requirements, since you're pregnant now, have you noticed any changes in terms of that? Have you needed to have more, different kinds of foods? Have you been craving anything?
Well, so I'm 13 weeks right now. Between week, I think it was 5 or 6 until about week 9 or 10, I was definitely having some morning sickness and just nausea all day. And during that time, it was just really hard to get food in general, but particularly meat. That was a really big struggle. So I had to be a little creative when it came to getting in some food, and I was really, really craving fresh vegetables. So I really just kind of let myself eat the things that I could. I avoided the things that I couldn't, but I've been tracking everything since the very beginning because I wanted to make sure I was getting enough protein and all that. And I'm kind of a tracker. That's not for everyone. So it's been really beneficial for me to have all that information. But as soon as I could stomach anything, like as soon as I said, okay, I can have chicken now, I was putting chicken in my diet. Liverwurst was one of the first things I wanted to implement into my diet because it's just so nutrient dense. And it was a meat and organs and all those things. So I started making a chili and just started making a keto chili and then putting that in there. And that was the best way for me to get in meat. But I haven't had any like crazy cravings or anything like that. Just really focusing on the nutrients in the food and trying not to just eat stuff for fun. Chaffles did save my life there for a couple of weeks, I must say. And then as soon as I could eat other things, I was like, okay, we're done with the chaffles. Let's move on to something else.
That's so good. I remember when so my youngest is 8 now, but so I had gone paleo in between my 2 children. She was my little paleo baby. And I had such bad morning sickness with her all day and all night for the first 18 weeks. And I was so disappointed in myself that I couldn't eat any foods that I had been originally eating. And I almost was like, you kind of go through this phase. I was beating myself up about it. And I'm sure many women can relate to this. And I was so all I want to eat is sourdough and Vegemite, which is like an Australian savory spread. I just wanted the carbohydrates and the salt basically. And that's all I could hold down. And I was like going, I can't be eating this food. This is, this affects me. I shouldn't be eating it. It's not good for the baby. I'm not getting any good nutrients in. but then I'm so sick, I can't do anything about it. And I started researching, and at the time there wasn't like a lot around, I guess, low carb nutrition or keto or paleo for pregnancy. And then luckily these days there's a lot more around. But I did come across, I think I might have wrote to Mark Sisson, and he was just basically like, just whatever you do, you can just paleofy whatever it is that you're able to eat. So if you just want mac and cheese, just eat mac and cheese, but make it yourself and put an egg through it and make it as nutrient dense as you can. Don't beat yourself up about these foods that you're wanting to eat. So have you come across any of that, or had any thoughts for other mamas that might be going through that kind of thing?
Yeah, I definitely was like, I'm going to stay keto this whole time. There's no chance. First, because I just knew if I went and ate a bunch of carbs, my stomach would just hate me. And second, actually, if you do stay low carb or actually keep an eye on your blood sugar, you will have less morning sickness because you won't have the blood sugar spikes and drops as much. So that was another really big goal of mine, just saying like, okay, if I can get through the first trimester, staying fully keto, keeping my blood sugar stable, I won't have as much morning sickness. So that was kind of a thing for me. And that is exactly what I did. I pretty much ketofied everything, which is why I had the chaffles, because you do crave something like bready, something to absorb. So I did do a lot of chaffles with just like cinnamon on it. And then I did those flackers, like they're flax crackers. And I would put peanut butter on those and keep them by my bed and eat those in the morning. That was really helpful. And then there's this company, Keto Explorer, and they do freeze-dried meatballs and steak bites. And because they were dried, they were like, they're freeze-dried. I did not put the water in them to, get them to be moist again.
Hydrated, yeah.
Yeah, I just kept them dry, and I would eat those with a little bit of salt sprinkled on top. And that was also my other like saving grace. So anything that I've been craving, I just ketofied it or just found a way of finding a different alternative to really what it was that really helped a lot.
That's such a good idea. And I think that's really helpful for other women who might be listening to hear that as well. Like, we put so much pressure on ourselves. And then this article that we have here, it's called Being Pregnant Triggered My Disordered Eating. And it's an article about the author. She's going through and saying how she was recovering from a disordered eating as a child, or she was recovering from disordered eating as a child, and then had found herself pregnant. And she was saying pregnancy comes with a lot of emotions and hormones. And after being told by a doctor what she couldn't eat, so the doctor had basically given her a list of things that started to trigger her back into her emotional eating. So what are your thoughts around what's happening here?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think even like I mentioned, I'm kind of a tracker, but there was a period of time where I couldn't track because it would trigger me to binge. And it wasn't that I wasn't eating enough. It was just that just the act of tracking drove me to binge. It was very weird, but I ended up working through that. It took some time, but now I'm more of a tracker again. And so it is really interesting. And I would say, unless it's a hindrance to your health, not going crazy with it, just, allowing yourself to eat the things and try to do as nutrient dense as you can. Or if it's something that you're really wanting, maybe try to find a healthy alternative to it, or just limiting yourself a lot. And this individual that wrote the article, I'm not sure why her doctor said, don't eat this, maybe it was a form of diabetes that she was going through during pregnancy. But that is definitely a hard one. Me personally, I would just try to avoid the things that would trigger me to, just to make sure that it was as healthy and happy as you can make your pregnancy, because it's already a hard thing. You're already going through a lot.
I think also, yeah, it's like, especially first time round. Second time round, you're usually a bit more relaxed, but first time round, so many people, it's all beautiful that people want to help, but they tell you so many things. And a lot of the things are not usually very positive either, or especially when we already know that being in the nutrition world, people have their opinions about things already. And then when you become pregnant, it's like your public property. We're going to tell you everything that you shouldn't be doing. I think that if you're not in the right state of mind, or you haven't got that mindset right, it can be very easy to spiral back into things that maybe you might be recovering from the past, or it might be start something during that time. Do you have any suggestions to women who might be going through that? What are some things that they could do to try and, not let this impact their mindset?
Yeah, that's definitely a mind thing. It's definitely trying to remove yourself a little bit from the situation and looking at it from kind of an outside looking in type of thing. And then also making sure that you are advocating for yourself. So if you're being told something, making sure that you are able to advocate for yourself and say, hey, I understand this, but also, there might be some things that it would actually trigger that would make all of this a lot worse. But the mindset aspect of things, I think, well, first of all, talking with someone, finding a counselor or a therapist or something like that can be super, super helpful to help you navigate exactly what you're going through. Because you'll be able to kind of spill all of your beans. You'll be able to say, like, these are things I've gone through in the past. These are things I'm struggling with now. And just giving yourself so much grace, because your body is going through a lot of things, which can already be a trigger to a lot of people. So I think just really finding someone you can just talk to, find someone that you can kind of give your all to, and just say, like, here I am, help me navigate this, is really the best way. And then avoiding the things that are a trigger, not just seeing the things that are going to taunt you, or avoiding certain stores maybe, or things like that. Just trying to avoid those things that can be a trigger for whatever it is that you're going through.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I think that especially more so these days, we women, or even we tend to isolate ourselves a lot. So you feel like you're going through this on your own. You don't have the support, but there is other people out there that you can reach out to. Definitely professional help, but also, call on other mothers. Like, back in ancestral days, we would have been sitting around the campfire sharing these stories and helping each other and looking after each other's children and looking after each other during pregnancy. And we've really lost that connection. So starting to form those friendships with other people that have been in a similar situation with you can make you feel like these things that are happening, some of them are really they just are normal, but to you, they can be really compounded and feel kind of spiraling and out of control. So having that support network there to help you, I think, is so important. I think it's important even then. I think, like, nutrition is so important, but I think having that support network is so important when you're having children. If you are alone and don't have that support, then, finding people that you can just even have a phone call or a chat to is just so important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty true. I didn't even think to mention that, but I have utilized my sisters and cousins a lot. And then there's a lot of really awesome, like, mom groups on Facebook and things like that. I have a few really good friends that are like, you're a part of the mom tribe now, like, here we go. And they've been just super helpful. Like, let me send you this thing. And it really is amazing when you connect with other women going through the same thing, or who have gone through the same thing. It's really empowering to have them, like, they have your back. They want you to do well and succeed. So that's a really good idea.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I think some of the very best friends I have still to this day are not the girls I grew up with. They're not my best friends all through, like, my 20s, but they are the other women that I met in mom groups, either when I was pregnant or when my babies were little or toddlers, and doing the mommy and me thing, because there is something so powerful about that bonding when you're in the thick of it, going through it with someone else and having that support. So that's always my best advice for someone, is to just join a mom group.
Yeah. And if you have trouble, maybe you're in a town where you don't know a lot of people, finding something like, for me, I wasn't really interested in just, maybe going over to someone's house and just sitting around and chatting. I wanted to do something active. So finding like a pregnancy yoga, even if you might not be really into yoga, but the great thing about that was you're still getting some movement in, you're helping do things which will help you in when you're going to have birth. But there's women there that are having babies around the same time as you who are wanting to move their body as well. And I found that afterwards we would all meet up and go for a walk and go to the park and do things together, rather than the government run mothers group that I was put into, where they wanted to meet at McDonald's, which wasn't really my thing. So I think finding mothers groups of like-minded activities that you like to do will help you find the people that you want to kind of spend your time with during that time. So Holly, did you have any more questions or anything for this one?
No, but something we were talking about earlier made me think about like how everyone has an opinion when you're pregnant, and talking about how pregnancy can bring up a lot of past emotions and just a lot of thoughts and feelings. And I think that when you're pregnant and everyone's giving you advice and telling you what to do and what not to do, like I think one thing that's helpful is just to kind of like listen with grace, because I feel like if you didn't have a good pregnancy, or if like after you've been pregnant, when you look back, you think of all the things that you would have changed, or you wish you would have known, or you would have done differently. And so there's something about someone else experiencing pregnancy that just kind of takes over, and it's like it kind of becomes your emotional journey too, even though you might not even know this person, but maybe just kind of understanding that other people's pregnancies trigger all the emotions from your own pregnancy. And it's so weird. That was a ramble.
I was going to say, Crystal, have you found that on social media? Because you've got a public platform. Have you found that, people are offering their advice?
All of their advice. Yeah. But again, it's the same thing. I'm honestly one of those people that's like, I will listen to everything, because I am like obsessed with birth. Like, I think it's amazing. I think it's so wonderful. I've looked into it for years, just different methods and things like that. So a lot of it, I feel like I'm already quite aware of that. When people share with me that they did that, or that they've looked into it or whatever, I'm actually pretty excited about it. I'm like, oh, someone else, but at the same time, it is just like that. Like, if it's not something I'm interested in, I just try to take it with a grain of salt and just say, that's an awesome idea. Thank you so much. Like, you don't have to say, I don't want to do that. I don't believe in that. It's just like, cool. That's so cool that was your experience, or thanks so much for the advice. That's it. I think most people are just so excited for you, and they like want everything to be perfect that they're wanting to share everything.
Yeah, so true. And then once the belly starts showing a bit more, you'll have all these random strangers wanting to touch you. Although, in COVID times, maybe that's a good thing now. You won't have people coming up and asking. But people always wanting to, like, after my second, like when I got pregnant the second time, I was showing a lot quicker. And I just remember a lady saying to me, are you sure you're not having twins? Are you sure you're only that far along? I'm like, lady, that's not something that you say to another mother. Like, but thanks. I'm pretty sure I'm only having one. Crystal, it's been so great chatting with you. We've covered a lot of different topics, and we're excited about your pregnancy and love watching you on social media. So would you let us know again where people can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at the.lady.savage, and my website is ladysavage.com. I'm also on Facebook as Team Savage. Robert and I share a page on there, and I have a private Facebook page for all the Lady Savages out there.
Oh, so great.
Fantastic.
Holly, do you have anything to wrap up with?
Okay, I was just going to say thank you. I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm so glad we were able to have you on the show today. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. That's the end of today's episode. Our theme music is created by Andrew Bowden and production services by Kevin Kennedy Spain of Disc of Light Media. Have a great week, everyone.